relates to the alternative means of compliance, section 153.455.
Where are you, Jerry?
I'm on page 8 of the ordinance. Page 8 in the middle of the inclusionary housing ordinance.
Okay. 153.455.
Yeah. Can you explain how that process is going to work?
Yes, so if this inclusionary ordinance is to include a percentage for rental, state law requires that alternative means of compliance be provided. One being the establishment of an in lieu fee, and as mentioned within the ordinance as well as the staff report, that is an additional analysis that the city will have to undertake. That would start with a request for proposal project. Funding would be needed to conduct that analysis so that the in lieu fee that is assigned is assigned equitably amongst projects and however that is distributed and applied depending on the unit type. Also off-site construction, meaning that there is an option to provide units or to contribute to projects off-site. And then I believe there is also a dedication of land, which is value given in exchange for inclusionary units. And let's see. And then the acquisition and rehabilitation of existing units. So again, contributing funds to maintaining existing units, in particular affordable type units. So these are additional options if inclusionary housing is not recorded to a project for a rental project.
Okay, thank you.
Can I do a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Floor's open.
The threshold that we are deciding on is a 10 units. Is that what we are talking about? Is that by the state law, or is it like our local ordinance? State law?
And I thought it was 5 units.
Yeah, what is state law? 10 units for what?
For the trigger, so not all housing. So for example, a 2-unit, a 3-unit does not trigger the inclusionary requirement. The recommendation is 10 units.
But it's a recommendation. We can go to 5 if we want.
That is correct.
So that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I have just a quick question on the, we're looking at including for sale units, condo units, correct? And excluding the rental units. How does that work in the real world?
Not excluding, but not assigning a percentage. So the 10% is shown to be feasible because for sale, the rate of return is quicker for the development costs, whereas for a rental project, the rate of return is lower because this comes in the form of rent, and that can fluctuate on how that math works. So that's the reason for the feasibility recommendation.
But it's still available.
Yes.
Okay. My question is, in the city of San Gabriel, do we know what the mix is between for sale multifamily units and for rent multifamily units? Do we have any idea what that is?
We do not, but generally speaking, and the commission may recall, in particular commissioners that have been on the commission for a few years, typically the multi-unit projects would come with the subdivision map, and this is what allows for the sales, the airspace sales of the units, and it's, to staff's recollection, a project coming before the Planning Commission did not include a subdivision map is rare.
Right. So that's kind of my point, is we don't see the rentals. So I'm just kind of curious what the lay of the land is out there. So is it 50-50?
You don't see them because they're not being built.
Okay.
Everybody's,
That's an
whoever,
answer.
whoever's building, or majority of the construction
It's for sale.
is for sale.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Good enough. Okay. Let's move along. We're going to open up the public hearing. And I'm assuming we have a speaker card?
We do. Yes, we do. We have one speaker card for Ms. Cheryl Cabot.
Okay. I'm not sure how much the city paid the consultant regarding inclusionary housing in San Gabriel, but I can tell you right now, it was too much. 0 inclusionary housing for renters, that's a shame and a sham. I could have said that for free because we have always been at 0 and we are still at 0. We needed to spend taxpayers' money to not move that dial. The consultant was clearly on the side of the developers. Their argument is always that they will lose money. No, they won't. First, they will increase the price of luxury units to cover the cost of the acquired low and moderate income units. And secondly, developers can apply for state density bonus, which the city states the developers will make a reasonable profit. What is wrong with a reasonable profit? Why do they need to make an obscenely high profit? Affordable housing is a right, but unfortunately for many, it is not attainable. These people are not asking for luxury apartments, they are just asking for affordable apartments. Over 50% of our citizens in San Gabriel are renters and low income, 30% are very low income. Do you want to deny these citizens the opportunity of affordable housing? If that's what you believe, shame on you. 0 is a starting point, not the finish line. We should have a finish line of at least 15% inclusionary housing. San Gabriel should not be stuck at 0. We need to make it to the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And I assume the consultant's not here tonight, so.
No, Chairman, but we did also receive 5 emails for public comment.
Okay.
Okay.
And
The first one is from Peter Arizmendez, and it reads as follows. Dear San Gabriel City Planning Commission, our community appreciates your support in tackling the housing crisis. Please plan for San Gabriel City to adopt an inclusionary housing policy with 20% minimum or at least 15% minimum housing affordability for low and extremely low income for both rental and sales units. Our majority rental city desperately needs such a policy. Know thy Lord will be pleased with your work to help low-income households. We need more affordable rental housing and affordable for purchase housing. So thankful for addressing these matters in consideration for those that live below the poverty level. Sincerely, Peter Arizmendez, City of San Gabriel citizen. Kathy Chavez. Planning Commissioners. As a HERE Commissioner, I support the city adopting a meaningful inclusionary housing ordinance, IHO, that takes into consideration not just the financial impacts on developers, but also the social and economic benefits to residents. I believe that a meaningful IHO must include both for sale and rental development projects. I also believe that the percentage of inclusionary units should be no less than 10%. In order to make a substantive impact on these housing crisis, we should strongly consider incentivizing commitments in excess of 10% by providing streamlined permitting and fee discounts. Our neighboring cities of Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Alhambra have already adopted inclusionary rates. Our neighboring cities of Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Alhambra have already adopted inclusionary rates above 10% for both for sale and rental. Additionally, there should not be an opt-out option through the establishment of an affordable housing fund for future affordable housing. This has historically been utilized as a way to circumvent meaningful inclusionary housing in mixed-income development projects. The integration of the affordable units into market rate projects creates opportunities for households from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds to live in the same developments and have equitable access to the community services and amenities. Thanks, Kathy. From Vicky Goto. The Planning Commission and the City Council have received numerous comments from the public that overwhelmingly support adopting an inclusionary housing ordinance, IHO, that helps solve the affordable housing crisis in the city and the entire county. Please listen to your constituents' input and pass a responsible IHO that is recommended by the data from your consultant's report. The tables on pages 20 to 35 show development would not be impeded if state density bonuses are applied and support the following rates. For Zone MUC, for sale, low income and moderate income at 15%, table A4. For rent, low income at 15%, table A8-8. Modern income at 14%, table A6. For Zone R3, for sale, low income and low moderate income at 15%, tables A-10 and A-12. For rent, low income at 15%, table A16. Moderate income at 10%, table A14. When the state of California passed a smoking ban for restaurants and bars, there was a mass hysteria that it would be the death of those businesses. As we now know, the opposite has occurred, with many more people able to enjoy an evening out without breathing toxic smoke. Likewise, responsible developers who figure out the formula to remain profitable will be in high demand across all of LA County. The city of Huntington Beach has been in the news recently, being sued by the state of California for violating state affordable housing laws. It would be physically irresponsible for the city of San Gabriel to be put in a similar position, not to mention a reputational disaster. We want our city to be a leader in creating an inclusive, thriving community where all are welcome and everyone benefits from the contributions of its culturally, generationally, and economically diverse residents. Do the right thing. Thank you, Vicky Goto, San Gabriel resident and here Commissioner. Allison Henry, April 10, 2023. Dear San Gabriel City Planning Commission, thank you for hearing this important housing policy item. This letter is in support of a greater percentage of housing units at low and very low income levels in the inclusionary policy. San Gabriel Valley Tenants Alliance was formed in 2020 to educate and create tenant support in the San Gabriel Valley. We would like to see San Gabriel Valley adopt 20% minimum with at least 15% minimum for low and extremely low income, 5% for moderate income residents, and include for rent units and not only for sale units. The policy is not aligned with San Gabriel's current economic and housing reality. The Southern California Association of Governments data demonstrate the need for affordable housing for current residents, and this is the data used in the city's housing element. SG is a majority renter city, 55% renters. San Gabriel has a lower income population than the county. 14% of residents are below the poverty level. Over half, 58% of all San Gabriel households are low-income households. Rents are slightly higher in San Gabriel than in the county. Nearly 6 out of 10 San Gabriel renters are housing cost burned, meaning they spend 30% or more of gross income on housing costs. Almost 32% are severely cost one burdened, meaning they spend 50% or more of gross income on housing costs. From 2000 to 2018, San Gabriel permitted a total of 346 units, the majority of which were single-family units. Compared to the larger Southern California Association of Governments region, San Gabriel has consistently permitted fewer units per 1,000 residents. During calendar year 2020, there were 223 Section 8 program participants that resided in San Gabriel, page 34. See San Gabriel Housing Element Summary, Appendix 8.1.2. San Gabriel Valley Tenant Alliance makes the following strong recommendations for San Gabriel's inclusionary policy. There should be 20% minimum affordability in the low and very low income brackets. Neighboring Pasadena does have an inclusionary policy that is above the proposed 10%. Pasadena's policy is at 20%. At the March 2nd, 2023 joint meeting of City Council and the Planning Commission, local expert Jill Shook submitted a letter in the public comments, which details and pictures from Pasadena. Laverne, another local neighbor, has an inclusionary policy of 15% of units developed by a private developer. An inclusionary housing policy produces benefits for the community without losses for developers. An inclusionary policy is one that aligns with the current residents of San Gabriel, residents who struggle now with high rent burden and could be beneficiaries of an inclusionary policy in new developments. And these residents would be able to retain their community ties. Units must include both for sale and rental units. Excluding for rent units in a tenant majority city does not make sense, nor is it just. The city data cited above demonstrates the need for more affordable rental housing, in addition to more affordable for purchase housing. Thank you for your consideration to adopt an inclusionary policy that has at least 20% affordable housing for sale and rent in San Gabriel. Sincerely, Allison Henry, co-founder, San Gabriel Valley Tenants Alliance. Chastity Jennings Nunez, to the Commissioners. Based on the information provided by Lisa Weiss Consultant, Inc., an inclusionary housing ordinance that requires a minimum of 10 to 15% of units be affordable for low and moderate income households for both rental and for sale multifamily housing units in all new developments is reasonable and in line with neighboring cities. The March 2nd meeting was attended by a large number of residents who passionately demanded that our Planning Commission and City Council address the lack of affordable housing in San Gabriel. The lack of low-income housing affects our senior population, people who are employed full-time, 2 adult households, working professionals, and young adult households. It is not a problem they can believe only affects a minority of residents who are part of marginalized communities. The consultant's report indicates that with the use of the state's density bonus guidelines, creating affordable housing is still profitable for builders. It is pure conjecture that inclusionary housing ordinance will lead to a less development because developers will be unwilling to possibly forego even a small percentage of the huge profits they desire. We have to require builders to be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. We cannot continue to allow developers to rake in record profits while the residents of LA County see opportunities for affordable, safe, quality living spaces dwindle. LA County residents have indicated by voting for measures, bonds, and increases in sales taxes that they are willing to take money out of their own pockets to help solve the housing crisis in our city. When are we going to require developers to do their share to address the housing crisis? Over 55% of available housing units in San Gabriel are occupied by renters. That number is likely to continue to rise. Any inclusionary housing requirements that does not include rental units and low-income households in the code is meaningless in a city that is majority renters. I expect our Planning Commission and City Council to represent the majority of residents in our city who demand action. And inclusionary housing requirements of 10 to 15%, that includes low-income housing and rental units, is a minimum. Chastity Jennings Nunez, 20-year resident, here Commission Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, well done. Okay, that's it for the public comment. We're going to go ahead and close that and open this up for discussion. Well, a lot of work has gone into this, and the tough part is trying to strike a balance. And I respect the struggle there. The one outstanding item that has ballooned here in the last 9 to 12 months has been interest rates. And if you take that and factor it into the study, all those feasibility numbers come down. You're looking at least double of what the interest rates were when this study was put together. I remember reading something, I believe it was under 3%. Well, those were the days. We're looking at 5, 6, 7% now, and I'm not sure when that's going to come down. So anyway, that would move me to look at this a little more conservatively than I would normally do with a lower interest rate out there. I would love to hear what our other members have to say here. Jerry, you want to jump in?
Yeah. This is really a challenge. One thing that needs to be said, and it was said during the joint study session, but needs to be said again, is all of these calls for 10 or 15% for renters. People think that means that if you're a current renter, that you're going to have your rent go down, and that's not the case. So people are. It's important to understand that what we're talking is prospectively and not retrospective. It's new stuff.
Right.
And that's very important for the community to understand. They may philosophically still believe that rental units need a push for low mod, and so be it if that's what they believe. But it's not going to take somebody, the 55% of renters currently, and reduce their rent. It's also important to say that according to the feasibility results summary that on table 11, that stuff in the rental units in the, I think this is Valley Boulevard, is that, MUC is Valley Boulevard? Valley Boulevard?
That's correct.
That if a rental project gets a density bonus, that there would be a requirement in those cases for affordable units. In an R3 zone, staff has made the case that the feasibility is not there. But if there's a density bonus in the Valley Boulevard housing project, that with the density bonus, there would be, depending on whether it's low or moderate, some percentage of affordable housing. So there's not a zero rental situation. There's a potential for rental benefits. Chair, you said something very important about interest rates, because we've been here with mixed-use projects on San Gabriel Boulevard that have come to us and have been approved. And of course, there's nothing going on San Gabriel Boulevard right now, and that's a reflection of the economy and interest rates. So I think it's important that we set up the inclusionary housing requirement. It's important that we do that for the future of San Gabriel. And I think that this ordinance provides lots of flexibility for developers. The idea that they can do an in lieu fee, and that staff and the city would do a development, or they could put, the affordable housing could be somewhere else. I worry about it becoming a slum, but that doesn't mean, but if it's done right and done well, you don't necessarily know that those are, as an affordable project versus a market rate project. Many people think that the affordable units need to be mixed in with the market rate units. And that's I guess that's an ideal, especially with density bonuses. I don't know enough about the R3 process to know that but the analysis indicates that for sale works and rental doesn't work. So I hear what the community of the people who have spoken want. And if the commission wants to add some requirement for R3 rentals, so be it. I'm not prepared to do that myself. I'm not prepared to request that myself. And I think that the analysis, the study was done and the analysis was done, and I think it's sound analysis overall. And so, depending on the rest of the commissioners and their positions, I'm willing to move ahead or to listen to other ideas.
Good. Thanks, Jerry. Sean?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, so when you, in 153.452, applicability, it doesn't include, so this whole ordinance, it is not including rental.
Tell me the page on that again.
That is page 5 of the actual ordinance. It says, so it's the very first clause after the definitions. It says applicability. The provisions of this subchapter shall apply to all residential development as defined, and then it references the definitions. Residential development is a different definition than rental residential development. So is this ordinance completely excluding rental from inclusionary housing?
That is correct, as proposed.
Okay. I have a lot of questions and concerns and a lot of comments and opinions, so I hope you'll indulge me. I think this is too important not to discuss. That's a non-starter for me. I won't vote for anything that doesn't include rental. We are a city of nearly 60% renters. Most of our families are house cost burdened. So to consider absolutely no rental in whatever percentage is determined, I think is absurd. I want to note that the feasibility study showed that if a density bonus is utilized by a developer, we can go up to 24% in some instances in both rental and for sale units. I'm not quite sure why staff and everyone's simply discounting the density bonus. That's state law. A developer gets to use it if they want to use it. And if the whole point of an inclusionary housing ordinance is to induce, incentivize developers to build more affordable units, they haven't been doing it here. That's the problem. Other surrounding cities have a lot of them have done it, and they've done it by at least 15%. So we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. If for whatever reason a developer doesn't want to utilize the density bonus, that's on them, but they have that choice in Pasadena. They have it all over the cities. We really have an existential crisis here. What we've been doing is not working. And I just want to point out that not only is this for sale units only, it's for 10 units, or it only applies if you go more than 10 units. I asked staff before the last joint city council planning commission meeting, how many units currently are in the pipeline, or said in the last 5 years, 55% have been fewer than 5 units. So what are we doing here? We're completely excluding the majority, it looks like, of developments, whether it's for sale or rental, because we're going above and beyond what the state says. The state says it's only mandatory that if you build 5 units, you can exclude them from an inclusionary housing law. Alhambra goes 5 units. So this, to me, is window dressing that does next to nothing, and I think it's an extreme disservice to our city and the majority of the members of our community who rent and who are cost burdened to say, we aren't going to do this. In terms of interest rates, they've been low for a long time, and the developers weren't using the density bonus. They weren't using, they weren't building affordable units of their own volition. And I want to point out that the feasibility study showed that if they use the density bonus, in some instances, they're actually going to make more of a profit than if they don't build any affordable units and just for-profit units. So we have these laws at the state level that provide an incentive, that compensate these developers. We need to get them to build that. They're not, we've seen over the decades, they're not gonna do it on their own. So I can't support this. I mean, my recommendations are, I would also say too, there, how can we pass anything if we haven't done an in lieu feasibility study, if that's required by law? That's a very important part of any inclusionary housing ordinance because it's gameable. If you look and if the in lieu fee is too low, every single developer is gonna pay to the in lieu fee. And the city the onus is then gonna be on the city to go and find the land, build the affordable housing, which is not likely. In the city of Alhambra, they say any unit, any project less than or over 20 units, they don't get to use the in lieu fee. Because it's just not feasible for the city to build these units themselves. The developers need to do it. But also, if the in lieu fee is too low, they're all gonna pay into it. All of these things have to be considered yet that we haven't done. But if the state is requiring us to have an in lieu fee, and we haven't done a feasibility study yet, how do we implement anything? It also says on page 10, inclusionary housing ordinance, part number 2, with respects to sites dedicated pursuant to subdivision D. So this is where developers get to donate land, which is fine for housing rather than build it themselves. We're giving the city the option to not use that land for affordable housing. We're allowing the city to sell it off and not build anything. I think that clause has to be removed because the whole point of the land is to build affordable housing. And if the developer's donating the land, I'm on page 10.
So am I, but where? Which,
The very top, number 2.
The city may sell the land, if I may, Chair.
Say it again?
May I?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, the city may choose to sell the land, but the proceeds from that sale have to be used for affordable housing. They either have to go into the Affordable Housing Fund, or they have to go into the Inclusionary Fee Fund.
I understand that, but the whole point is land is hard to come by. So if we're being gifted land in lieu of a developer building the inclusionary housing, we sell the land, where are we gonna build the affordable units? I mean, it's a loophole in my opinion, and I don't think it should be in there. I think that even if we sell the land, a percentage of affordable units should go on there. Those are just some checks that you can include in the ordinance to prevent the gaming of the ordinance like that. You know, going back to the density bonus, if a developer doesn't want to use it, we have a clause in here that says, so this is on page 13 of the inclusionary housing ordinance, and this is part C. Essentially, this protects a developer if they can prove that they're unable to make a profit, a reasonable profit, by building 15% or whatever percent we hear, they can appeal, and if it's found to be unconstitutional, they don't have to do it. So I think the onus should be on the developer to prove that they can't make a reasonable profit, then for us to simply say, well, we're just gonna let them continue to do what they've been doing, which is not build any affordable units. So I won't be supporting this ordinance if it doesn't include any rental. And I think it's a shame, and I think we have to own that as a city, that we're not doing our fair share. And one final thing, these people who are low income, a lot of people who come to these meetings, not just the majority of people who live in our city, but I think we have to be careful not to dehumanize them. So when I hear comments like, I don't want projects to be turned into slums because there's affordable units, it really bothers me. And I know that we're not that as a city. There's standards, but we're not exclusive as a city. We are inclusive, and our inclusivity is not how tall our buildings are. It's the people, the makeup of the city. It's a social fabric. And the majority of our people in this city are low, very low, or extremely low income, and the majority of them are renters. And that's just a fact. And I think we're doing a disservice if we don't include renters in this.
Okay?
Thank you, Chair. I think, as you mentioned, we need to strike a balance between like what we need to be done for our community, as well as welcoming businesses who want to do their business in San Gabriel. But I think I hear our Commissioner Sean's comments about including rental. I think that is important for our community, not just for sale. I would like to see a clause or some kind of language in our ordinance stating that, the rental is included. And also, are we adopting like specifically the ordinance tonight? Or do we need to have a study sections where we can like kind of like go over the language? Looks like there's some like major difference that we have among our commissioners, right? So that would be great if we can have a study sections, go over the language, and then like recommend some language changes and a percentage. Of course, that would be a major issues for the inclusive affordable housing thing. So
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The process that we're in today is there is a proposed ordinance which came from all the work that was done, that was discussed, as well as a joint meeting between Planning Commission and the City Council, and direction that staff received. I was absent at that meeting. I think Paul Early was here. But I think this is the fruit of what's been discussed for the last 2 years, I guess. The job of the Planning Commission, whether it's today or whether it's at the next meeting or the following meeting, is to arrive at an ordinance that you wish to recommend to the City Council, or an ordinance that you don't wish to recommend to the City Council. I mean, if there's the desire of the Commission to look at this ordinance, majority of the Commission, to look at this ordinance to include rentals, I think that staff would need to come back with language, proposed language into the ordinance.
Is there a time crunch on this?
Sam will know that better than I will.
Chairman, members of the commission, there is not. Again, this is an introduction of inclusionary regulations for the city of San Gabriel. It's something that the city has never had in place. Density bonus laws, whether the city updates its code, the city still has to comply with state law. So that's in place. Again, it's just to reflect updates, and it's to make references so that the city does not have to constantly monitor its local ordinance to be consistent with state law. With the percentage for rentals, again, that's something for the Planning Commission to discuss tonight. The feasibility percentages are presented, and it's a matter of whether the Planning Commission agrees with assigns a percentage. So the percentage, it shows currently what is considered feasible, and that a developer and property owner can construct and make happen. The percentage for inclusionary housing, the Planning Commission can assign what the Planning Commission believes is appropriate for the city. One is to support with data a percentage to consider, but the planning commission can assign whatever percentage. The only thing that staff would add would be to recommend not exceeding the 15%, because then that is something that the state will flag. It's something that was a concern as other cities are trying to get their housing element certified as an item of concern, as it was showing that it was hindering development. So that would be staff's comment to that, whether it be 10, 15, that is up to the planning commission.
Okay. Feng, to your point, do we feel like we have enough information? And I'm asking my other commissioners here. Do we have enough information to come up with an alternative percentage? Because as I understand it, the percentage, whether it's for sale units or whether it's rental units, that's a movable number, correct? Okay.
With the caution that planning manager expressed, and that is the cities that do have a 20% or above, I'm not sure I know of a city that has a higher percentage, are looked at the state, by the state, as basically an intentional act that hinders development, a reverse effect. So for example, the city of San Gabriel could say, we're gonna have a 50% inclusionary ordinance, and it basically would put a stop to development in that area, in the area of either it's above 10 units or above 5 units, wherever the planning commission decides to end on that. So if you are considering numbers, I would recommend that you give heed to what Sam said. It is, we do not want to be bringing attention to ourselves in a negative way by the state. We have a certified housing element, and a lot of good comes with that, and I think that's something that we ought to protect.
Mm-hmm. And that, again, comes to striking a balance. So, I'm thinking, okay, if we throw some numbers on these and we send them up to the city council, they have the same luxury that we do to play with the numbers, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Maybe luxury is not the greatest word, but you get my drift. Okay. Do we have any recommendations on the commission? Sean?
You know I have recommendations.
I didn't think you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I appreciate all the comments from the public and the commissioners, and I appreciate staff's hard work. I would say, and okay, I think that it's fair. I'll accept that 20% is off the table. I think that's. I think though that staff acknowledged that, you know, up to 15% is still on the table and is viable, certainly with the density bonus applied by developers, which if I'm a developer, I don't know why I wouldn't use it if I'm going to be required to build 15%. So I think my proposal is, at this point, is the bare minimum should be 10% with rental and housing, but the ideal is up to 15% with rental and housing. But I also think that some of these other alternatives and some language in here needs to be adjusted in terms of what a proper in lieu fee is, who can use it in terms of how big the project is, and I also think that the size of a project that is excluded from any and all of these inclusionary, the inclusionary rate has to be 5, and I think that's reasonable because that's what the state's law is. So and most of what is being built currently here is less than 5. A lot of condos that are 4 or 5 units. So I don't want to exclude.
That's based on lot size. That's just cooked into the city. It's the way it's laid out.
Sure. I mean, that's fine. I just think that I think we should try to, encompass as many as possible, but do it for both for sale and for rental. And I think encouraging the developer to build the units as opposed to providing an option where an in lieu fee may be too low. So that's why I think it's very important we get it right. I mean, the city of Glendale, the bigger the project, the higher the in lieu fee goes up. So that the city is not stuck with a trust fund that they can't do anything with because there's no land and the city doesn't build affordable housing, developers do. So it's ideally they will do it. And I'll just add finally, I know I keep beating, I don't want to use that term, I keep saying over and over again, the density bonus, but it's worked tremendously in Pasadena. It's where they have 20% inclusionary. It's worked very well in Santa Monica, where they have 25% inclusionary, and they're the only city in the state, I believe, that actually made their affordable housing numbers. And the data shows that if that density bonus is applied, in many instances, the developer will make more of a profit than if they just build market rate units. So it's an incentive, and they can utilize it. Plus, I think it gives the developers really upfront, they know what they can and can't do, and it helps them to finance going in, okay, I'm building 15% in San Gabriel, I can use this density bonus and build X number more units, finance accordingly. That would be my opinion, is to recommend 15% rental and for sale for any projects over 5 units, with an in lieu fee that is adjustable to based on a study and is adjustable to larger projects. And finally, that we go no lower than 10% rental and for sale.
Okay, good. On that in lieu fee, how is that established?
As broadly outlined in staff's prior response, that would start with a request for proposal to qualified firms to do that feasibility or the in lieu fee analysis, and that would be very similar to the feasibility analysis, just evaluating in lieu fees that are currently in place and evaluating it against the data of San Gabriel to see which formulas may make sense. But that is the starting point. The city would have to search for a firm. Funding would have to be assigned because this will be in addition and on top of what grant funding will not cover at this point. We've already exhausted all of that. And we've already submitted our letters to the state, so that is completely done. So we would have to request for additional funding from the council.
All used up. Okay. Just as a matter of business, is any of that negotiable during the back and forth with the developer?
No, and that's the purpose of establishing an in lieu fee, so that it's very clear the fee that is accepted by the city. Correct. Yes. Yes, it has to be objective. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Would that need to be part, or could that be part of our recommendation to the city council? That is something that needs to be looked into further.
So the recommendation before the Planning Commission this evening would be the 2 exhibits attached to the resolution, which includes the draft language, both to amend the density bonus ordinance and to introduce the new language. As outlined by Commissioner McMorris, they do include, currently the language includes the alternative, how is that phrased? The alternative,
Means of compliance.
right, the alternative means of compliance. And generally, these options, they are options available by state law, so they're not random. As far as if the commission decides to support all 5 items, then that's an option before the commission this evening, or as mentioned by Commissioner McMorris, that is something that the Planning Commission can look at in more detail as far as which items to keep or not to keep, but this is essentially just providing all of the options that's available by state law.
Okay, so let me understand this. Where we are right now with the staff recommendation is a 10% figure for sale units, correct?
The actual recommendation from staff is for the planning commission is to assign a percentage. The feasibility study recommendation recommends
that's what I'm looking
the
at, is the
10. That's
feasibility study.
correct,
Okay.
yes. It's the
All right.
feasibility study.
that
So
is-
it's a matter of concurring with the study or assigning a different percentage.
That's very helpful. That it's a recommendation. Okay, very good. Jerry,
One thing,
how you feel about this?
one thing that's important to recognize, I hate to say this, but San Gabriel is not Pasadena. And I think that in Pasadena, where they have a stronger rental marketplace, I think, than we do, in terms of the caliber, the economic status of renters, as opposed to here where they're, where people are rent burdened. And so they can do, I believe, if they're doing 20% on rentals, I think that reflects their marketplace. I think we need to be honest about ours. If we want to do 10% for renters, so be it. I don't think doing 20% like they are doing is going to serve the city of San Gabriel in the way I think most of us want this ordinance to serve the citizens of San Gabriel, predominantly those that are part of future developments. So I really think if we're going to do something in rental, and it's in R3, it would be in R3, not because as I understand it, Samantha, the Valley Boulevard multifamily with density bonuses would be required to put in affordable units. Rental,
You're talking about the the mixed use
Yes.
commercial?
yes.
Density bonus is an option, it's not a mandate.
No, but if they do a density bonus, then
They have to put in,
if they do a density bonus, then they're required to put in affordable units in the mixed use areas. Is that the way? That's the way I understand it.
The density bonus laws apply to residential and mixed-use developments currently. So whether it be R2, R3, mixed-use, the density bonus law currently allows for those types of zones to apply for a bonus.
Right, and if they get a bonus, then they have to provide affordable housing.
That is correct.
Okay, that's an important thing to consider because the importance of density bonus has been clearly stated tonight, and I think all of us believe that when the marketplace improves, especially on places like San Gabriel Boulevard, we'll see the level of mixed use, the level of housing that we have actually built, that we've approved previously. So with this inclusionary requirement, we'd probably see more affordable housing on San Gabriel Boulevard in the future than has been presented to us in the past. So I think that's a good thing. because so, yes, encouraging density bonus is important in the scheme of things. I concur with my fellow commissioners about that. So, if we're gonna go with 10%, I can support that.
Okay.
If we're gonna go with a lot more, I have to give that a lot of thought.
Yes.
Quick questions. So I would like to see a language in the ordinance to set in stone that, like we as a city are including the rental, right? But I just want to make sure, is it going to be addition to the state law, the language that we are putting in as including the rental? Or is it just, we just kind of like excerpt, like we just take out languages from the state law and put it in our ordinance? Do you know?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but let me try to see if I got it.
Okay.
Inclusionary law, we're talking about two different ordinances here. One is density bonus.
I'm looking at page 5, 153.452, right? Yeah, Sean's earlier mentioned about that. Applicability, the provisions of this subchapter shall apply to all residential development as defined in blah, 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 right? So
We
if
have the
we-
ability, the planning commission has the ability to recommend to the city council that they look at an ordinance that would include
rental,
residential rentals.
okay. No,
In other words,
my
if somebody
question-
is building a apartment building that is going to be rentals, not for sale, we have the ability, the choice, to say the inclusionary ordinance will apply to anybody who built rental units.
I got that. My question is, if we include that clause in there, would it be addition to the state law?
It would not be in addition or in subtraction. The state law says that if you want to include it, you can.
Okay. The reason I'm saying is I don't want to be the city that is going against the state,
Right.
right?
Yeah. No, that, right now it's voluntary.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we're saying is that, no, you have to do this.
Okay. So if that's the case, Chair, I would recommend to include rental in that provisions,
Okay?
as well as, like, let's discuss on the threshold that would trigger this inclusionary affordability housing, right? So currently, in our ordinance, it's saying it's 10 units, right? If we include rental, I'm throwing out there the numbers, like 15 units for the rental, and then keeping 10 units for sale.
Okay.
Clarification?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Lee, so what is your recommendation is that projects that are for sale that are less than 10 and rental projects that are less than 15 units are excluded from the inclusionary housing ordinance?
That's correct. Trying to strike a balance, looking at to serve the residents in our city as well as feasibility for the developers.
Can I, so just to follow up on that, if I could, the state law says that up to 5 units have to be excluded. So we're doubling that then in saying we're going to include double what the state mandates are excluded. And my concern is, especially for sale units, is that the data shows that the majority of for sale projects that are being built are less than 5 units. So if we're excluding those projects that are for sale that are less than 10 units, I think we're excluding probably a majority of the housing for sale projects that are being built in the city. So I think my recommendation would be that we do what the state does and say 5 for sale, and then potentially double that for rental, so 10 units for rental. Does that sound feasible to commissioners? I just worry about excluding, not building, I just worry about building very little by excluding a larger part of those projects.
The study recommendation was 10 and 0. Okay. I think we can do better than the 10. Where I'm struggling is with the rental. How aggressive do we want to be on the rental? Jerry?
I actually like Commissioner Lee's proposal on rental that we start at 15. Because then we have something substantial, more substantial and more of an investment in the rental, for a rental, to be able to say, yes, with one of this size, you need to include affordable units.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that on the rental side.
So just to clarify, then, you're recommending then all rental units below a number of 15 unit, or 15 units or below 15 units, I'm not sure which one, would be excluded entirely from the inclusionary housing ordinance, you're saying for rental? I just want to, sorry, I just want to make, yeah.
No, we got to be clear on this.
Yeah.
I'm saying yes, unless, well, a smaller project's not going to use a density bonus. Just by its a 5-unit project, 10-unit project, won't be using density bonuses, so it won't, the inclusionary won't kick in automatically. So I'll support the idea of 15 as a starting point for rental.
Okay. How about for sale? Not to put you on the spot, Jerry.
No,
I'm sorry.
I think for sale, we can start at a lower number than 15. You know, every 5, we get one affordable unit built in with the project. So 4 market rates and 1 affordable. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all, for every 5 units to have 1 affordable unit and on a for sale basis. So if the commission wants to start at 5 for sale, I can support that.
5 units.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the percentages of,
I think it's got to be 10 on residential. I don't think on rental. I don't think it can be much. I don't think it can be more than
any
that.
higher than 10?
No, I think higher than 10, as much as meritorious as it sounds to do it, is self-defeating. I think it defeats the. We want to incentivize R3 projects. For the R3, we want to incentivize projects of a good size in the R3 zones for rentals. And so I think but for sale, if we want to do the smaller projects, fine. But I think really what we're going to see in the future in this regard, I go back to the mixed-use zones. I think that's where we're going to see the for-sale stuff that's really going to impact positively the inclusionary requirements.
Right. Well, it's where you can build the larger projects.
Right, absolutely. absolutely.
Sean?
Yeah, so, in terms of so just based on discussion so far, I've heard, that, anything below, or below 5 would be excluded for sale, and anything below 15 would be excluded for rental. Um, in terms of the 15, I would recommend that if they're not having to build anything from 5 units to 15 units rental, they must pay an in lieu fee then if they're not going to build. So that way, at least we're getting, at least building up a trust fund of some in the city to try and build our own. Is that, I think I'm okay with the 5 for sale. I'd prefer 5 for rental, but I think if we go up to 15 units in rental, I think I'm okay if we include an in lieu fee from
Balance that out with an
5 to 15. And in terms of percentages,
Yes.
for me, the floor is 10. If we go 11, 12, I would be very glad. Up to 15, I would be grateful. And I just want to add, what's the possibility of including a clause that the city revisits the percentage every 4 or 5 years based on, the economic climate or?
Because that's a moving target too, yeah.
I thought in the last meeting, we were talking about every 2 years revisiting the
Reviewing.
topic, right?
Do you remember that, Sam?
That can be written into the ordinance, keeping in mind that the data may not be available within a 2-year period.
The option is if the commission is considering a mandate, in other words, if you write it into the ordinance that you shall revisit
The ordinance.
the numbers, for lack of a better word, every 2 years, every 5 years, there's also a price tag that comes along with that that's tremendous. I don't know how much we spend on Lisa. Lisa does really good work, but I'm guessing it's a lot of money. So
Once again,
that's something to consider. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm not saying, but once you write it into the ordinance, then you have to do it. And if you want to do it to be meaningful, then you have to go out and spend the money. Otherwise, yeah, sure, you can bring the ordinance back in 2 years, sit around and go, yeah, this works. No, it doesn't work. But if you really want to have meat in it and have a meaningful review of what's going on, then I think a longer period of time is more prudent.
like minimum of 5,
I would say so, yeah.
yeah.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, I didn't say this at the beginning. A city council, if it wants to, at any time, it can revisit an ordinance and redo it, yeah, if they want to. But this would just be like,
Without putting
at a minimum, you would, every 5 or 6 years, you would look at it. That's,
But once you write it into an ordinance, I mean, city council can
yeah.
change
write
the
it
ordinance
down.
tomorrow, right? But assuming that the ordinance stays in place, once it's in the ordinance, then you have to do it. You don't have a choice.
But the way to do it, though, is you don't have to start from 0. You only have to start from the approval of the ordinance and go forward.
The rub is in how is it working? And if it isn't working, that's when you have to look at it and start spending money. Why isn't it working? Is it too high? Is it too low? What is happening? Why aren't developers using this? Why aren't they coming in and building? That's where
I see what
that's where the and experts.
Right.
I certainly not one. I don't think anybody around this table is one. To really evaluate and say this is why this is happening or that is happening.
Well, that's why we go outside for these things. We pay the experts. Right. So do we have a consensus here? It sounds like we're close.
Can we ask a quick questions on the city stuff? Do we have some kind of statistics showing the for sale units? What is like average that the builders are building just 5 units and below? Is that what it is?
I think the best is, and you haven't been on the commission long enough to see who's coming before us. And the majority of the condominium projects that we're seeing are, I think, like Sean said, they're under 5. It's,
5 units.
yeah. And what's interesting about that is that they are voluntarily smaller than what's allowed on the lot. Not smaller. The units are larger. The number of units is smaller. Exactly. And it's kind of counterproductive to what we're discussing here, is that they're building bigger units. So they're putting more units on a piece of land, and they're allowed to put more quantity, but they're building larger units.
A lot of 4-unit projects.
A lot of 4-unit, yeah. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. That's just the way the city lays out. I mean, just look at a map and, 50 by 150 is pretty much the grid, for an old community. So, anyway, and that's one of the limits that we're dealing with here, is that, it'd be nice to be Pasadena with a bunch of MU property, similar to what we have on San Gabriel Boulevard and minimally what's left on Valley. But that's just not the reality of what we have here. Even Las Tunas is very landlocked. You couldn't put a big box on Las Tunas. I mean, we went through that 10 years ago, trying to bring big box retail into the city, and it's like, yeah, okay, where are you going to put it? Nobody wants it in the golf course, so that kind of leaves you where else are you going to find? So they have land to build, yeah. Okay, so are we close? What I'm saying is 5 units for sale, 15 units for rent, with an in lieu fee to fill the gap between the 5 and the 15 units. And then as a percentage for the for sale, we're looking at 10 to 15, and for the rental, kind of the same thing. So can we nail down those numbers so we can push this up to the city council? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would be okay with that recommendation. But
10 and 15?
Between 10 and 15, and what the other things that you laid out. But I'm happy to hear other commissioners.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Chair. The in lieu fees. I like that idea, but can we separate it into regular in lieu fees versus like the one what we are talking about under 5 units for sales, and then under 15 units for rental, right? I don't want to put too much burden for these small builders or developers that, they have to come up with a lump sum of cash to pay for the in lieu fees, So is there a way that we can separate it 2 categories? One is
So it's not such a large spread between, say, 5 and 10, and then 10 and 15? Is that what you're saying?
what I'm saying is this is just let's say for condominiums, right? 5 units. They don't want to come up with the inclusionary affordable units, so they pay in the in lieu fees, right? For those guys, I don't want them treated as the other guys, the big guys that, pay in the in lieu fees in general terms.
So you're proposing a in lieu fee would change depending on the size of the project? A 5-unit project would pay a smaller in lieu fee than a 40-unit project?
That's correct.
So yeah, I would just add a lot of cities that I've looked at that have inclusionary, how they do that. The larger the project, the higher the in lieu fee. So I think I'm okay with that. I just think that all of this will be, the caveat of all of this in lieu fee discussion is based on the city will, basically, what we would recommend, like, for example, what we're doing now, the five, any rental units between 5 and 15, they do an in lieu fee, and then that in lieu fee would be based on the city's analysis of what an appropriate in lieu fee would be, an adjustable appropriate in lieu fee, because we haven't done that study yet, but I'm fine saying that, yes, whatever in lieu fee that the city comes up with based on a study, that it adjusts based on the size of the project.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Okay. Jerry, you on board with that?
Not exactly.
Okay.
If we're gonna say that the outside rental number is 15 units, then creating an in lieu fee at 5 units, you're saying really that the outside number is 5 units.
Mm-hmm.
You're not saying the outside number is 15
That's
units
true.
any longer. Having seen enough of these 4-unit projects or what have you, I'm not comfortable saying an in lieu fee starts at 5 rental units. The first thing I heard was 15 rental units, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And saying at 15, the requirement is 10% rental, affordable rental units.
Right.
Okay, that number, we need to decide there's a number for percentage of rental units that are required to be affordable. And I think that number, I'm comfortable with that number at 10%.
Mm-hmm.
On the sale side, I'm comfortable at 5 units requiring that one of those 5 be affordable. And I'm not convinced that at 5 units, quite honestly, developer doing 5 units should pay an in lieu fee. I think they should be required to make one of those 5 units be affordable.
Mm-hmm.
I think the in lieu fee comes at some other juncture, but I don't think it comes at 5 units. Because I think it has to come at, I think the in lieu fee comes at a larger number that has density bonus involved, where it becomes a substantial number and we can really impact some future fund for a development.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not coming out of a 5-unit project.
Right.
So I'm not sure a 5-unit project should be doing in lieu fees myself. Just one opinion. It's all it is one opinion. I think that we should say at 5 units, build an affordable unit. One affordable out of 5. I feel the same way at 10. I really think that we should be allowing in lieu fees starting at some other number like 25 units or something like that. Recognizing again that when we get a better economy, the mixed-use projects on San Gabriel Boulevard are going to be 150 units. And then we can get a substantial either affordable component or a substantial in lieu fee at that juncture. But I think there's a big difference between 150 units and 15 units in terms, 10 units in terms of saying, do an in lieu fee. At 10 units, build 2 units that are affordable. That's one person's opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you, and so I think it's always ideal to have the developers build the units. But I would just point out that cities increase the in lieu fee, the bigger the project, in some way to disincentivize a developer who's going to build 100 units from just giving the city a lump of money and then the city figuring out how to use it. Because the developer, ideally, the developer building 100 units is going to build those 15% or 10% units rather than having the city figure out to do it. So I think the in lieu fee, in my opinion, is allowing the smaller, the kind of, if you will, smaller developers a way to contribute without having to build, even though I prefer they build. But I don't think we should say in lieu fee only for big projects. I think that's the opposite of what a lot of cities, like Alhambra, has said. Anything over 20 units, in lieu fee can't apply simply because they want the developers to build the units.
They have the quantity of units to
compensate
spread it around.
and use the density bonus.
Well, obviously, we'd like to incentivize at all levels affordable units in the projects. Whether it's a 5-unit project or a 15-unit project. Obviously, we'd like to do that. I'm just saying at the smaller levels, I don't think an in lieu fee applies. It's, again, just one opinion.
Just want to clarify, the position that I was talking about, it is like for sale 5 units and a rental 15 units. What I was saying is that if it is for the rental, right, in lieu fees, rate will be different below and above that thresholds. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, so to clarify, yeah, Commissioner Lee, you're saying between 5 units and 15 units rental, because you would prefer they be excluded from having to build the units, that the in lieu fee at 6 units would be smaller than the in lieu fee at 16 units. Okay. And Jerry, what do you think of that? I would prefer they build the units too, but I think for the smaller developers, that's giving them, if we're going to say they don't have to build at all until they start building 16 units, at least then we're mandating that they are contributing in some way through an in lieu fee. That's where I'm coming from. And again, just add that the in lieu fee will be based on an analysis done by the city, so that,
I was
yeah.
just thinking about how
So,
this is going to happen.
yeah, we have to get it right, yeah.
Okay.
So the go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm
Go
just, the recommendation would be for the in lieu fee to kick in at X amount of units.
For me, Commissioner Lee first said 15 apartments, 15 units apartment. At that point, 10% kicks in. I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable saying that a 5-unit apartment has to pay an in lieu fee. I'm not comfortable doing that. When we're asking for 10% in lieu fee or 10% affordable units at 15 apartments, we're still going against what the consultant recommended. And listening to the community, I'm comfortable doing that. I'm comfortable recommending to the council, because they heard when we had the joint study session, remember, there were a lot of speakers.
Right.
And so I think we're trying to be responsive as we can be without blowing up the economics completely and totally. I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to strike that balance.
It's the balance.
And so I think the one thing that has to be agreed is, regardless of what the apartment number is, and I think it's 15, I like that.
Mhm.
What's the percentage affordable? And I think that percentage is 10% on rentals. And we're talking about rentals that are not part of mixed-use projects.
Right.
We're talking about R3.
These are R3 rentals, right?
Because again, mixed use that uses density bonus is gonna kick in automatically affordable units. So we're talking about R3. 15 units at that juncture, beyond 15, 10%.
Okay.
I can support.
So I mean, honestly, I think 15 is too high when the state says 5 is what has to be excluded. So if we, just to put it into perspective, if we go down to 10 for rental units, the cutoff is 10, at 10%, those developers are only having to build one affordable unit if they build 10, or they can pay the in lieu fee. So I'm just trying to, rather than exclude 5 units by going up to 15 and excluding them from having to do anything, pay an in lieu fee or build an affordable unit, my compromise was, if you're gonna go to 15, at least they have to pay into the kitty a little bit of money so that the city itself can build. But I think if we went down to 10 units at rental as the cutoff, then I would be fine letting them do what they want once they get to 10, either pay an in lieu fee or build the extra unit.
Okay, I can live with 10
Okay,
on rental.
okay.
But I would want staff to encourage that at 10 units, they build an affordable unit, including in the 10, rather than paying in lieu fee.
As opposed to the in lieu fee,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you gotta put some teeth into it.
yes. So you make the in lieu fee enough that they're gonna choose to build it rather than pay it
Okay?
at 10 units. Because I think we all agree, and the community in requesting rental side.
That was loud and clear.
Number, want to see those, I mean, I guarantee you, none of the people who showed up at the joint study session said, let's require in lieu fees. They said, let's build the units.
Right,
So that's what we want to encourage.
okay. I'm with you. Thing, you good with that?
I'm still thinking about that, but can we talk about the percentage?
10% is the number I'm comfortable with on rentals.
Assuming that developers are gonna use density bonus, right? With that in mind, I would go 15%, 9 for low income and 6 for moderate.
I can't. First of all, I think we're making a distinction here, just a second. It's a very important distinction. We're not talking about projects with density bonuses, because that's a whole nother category.
Right.
And those do kick in inclusionary requirements. That's important. What we're talking about here, when we're talking about 10 R3 units, is we're not talking about a density bonus project. We're talking about a project where a developer builds what's allowed on their site.
Density bonus could be applicable. I just want to make sure that,
Oh, above 5, yeah, yeah.
that you're clear on that, even in your example, if a developer said, no, I want to use density bonus. The lot allows me to build 10 units, but if I use density bonuses, I can build 15 of them.
And then automatically, inclusionary requirements kick in if they use density bonus.
Right, because then
But
he,
if they don't use the density bonus, and they're just building to code, and the code is 10 units, I think we want to incentivize by creating an inclusionary requirement that's too high, that they actually build one of those 10 units as affordable, that we actually get an affordable unit out of this.
To get something built.
Yes.
No, I think we all agree we prefer they build the units. But I want to make sure that everyone know that, so the density bonus, so essentially a developer right now, they can come to the city and say, I'm going to utilize the state's density bonus because I will voluntarily build 10% low-income units in my 50-unit, and we have to allow them to do that. Most developers don't do that. So in my opinion, the inclusionary ordinance from the city does is it incentivizes, it pushes those developers to consider that density bonus more often in order to make a better profit, because now we're requiring that at a minimum, they build 10% affordable as opposed to giving them a choice. And when then at 10%, the density bonus law automatically kicks in for them, and they are going to, any developer, in my opinion, that is in sound mind would say, if you're going to require me to build 10, I'm going to use the density bonus. There's no reason why they wouldn't want to, and our city's analysis showed that when that density bonus is applied, the developers make, in some instances, more profit than when they simply just build market rate units, because that density bonus is supplying them the incentive at the moment.
To clarify, what we're trying to discuss, I think on the low side, are projects that don't qualify for density bonuses. We all agree that density bonus projects, I mean, even the staff report agrees with the density bonus, an inclusionary requirement kicks in. So I think that part of it is set up. It's what we're talking about is that the smaller projects,
On the low
the minimum, the minimum requirement, where the rubber meets the road on how many units of rental housing before we require an affordable unit. And I think we've agreed that's 10. And again, not talking about density bonus. The question is what percentage of rental requirement, percentage of affordable rental requirement at 10 years, and to me the answer is 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So 10% on rental housing, starting at 10 units, and on for sale housing at 5 units it's required. And again, at 5 units, nobody's using a density bonus. So I think it's 10% at 5 units on sale. Yes, when the economy gets better, we will see projects with density bonuses again. We will. When the interest rates get better, we will see those. We will welcome those, because those are projects where we can get a good number of affordable units out of them because they kick in. The density bonus is not economical today in the rates as Chair, as you talked about.
Right.
So, I think keeping that density bonus in place is absolutely necessary for the window of time when we can actually take advantage of it.
Okay, so the recommendation on for sale units?
5 units on for sale, 10 on rental. And on the rental side, we're talking about a 10% requirement,
Right.
where right now it's 0 in R3.
Correct. And on the sale side? 15?
I think it's, I think it's 10, but I'm open to 15, if that's what the commission wants.
What do you say?
I'm good with 5 for sales and 10 for rental, and no in lieu, right?
No in lieu on rental until you get to 10 units.
Okay. For percentage,
On rental, I'm suggesting 10% affordable in rentals at 10 units and above.
And then 10 to 15 is kind of our sweet spot
okay.
for sale.
Sale, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking about 15%, 9 to
Yeah.
low income, and then 6 for.
I agree with, I support that.
Of what? I'm sorry, I'm not clear what you're saying.
15% on for sale units, with 9% being low income and
6% for the moderate.
So we're not
The other
talking
way
about
around.
rental now? We're talking only about for sale?
no. Right now we're talking sale.
Oh, okay. I thought initially Commissioner Lee was talking about rental, but okay.
Okay, that's fine on sale.
Okay. So yeah, what we've kind of found the 10% inclusion on the rental with a 10-unit target.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my preference is if we're going to do a 15%, if we're going to say one is 10 and one is 15, my preference is to do both at 15, but if we have to choose between one of the two, we have many more people in the city who rent than who are able to buy a house. So I'm inclined, I want to see if the commission wants to split it that way, I would like to see the 15 go to the rental. I would like to see the 15 go to both of them, just to be equal, or to recommend to the commission that they, do 15 but not go lower than 10 on either.
Could you live with 10?
I mean, I think we're getting close. I'm trying really hard to compromise. I'm listening to everyone. I want to make this happen. I think I want to go more than 10 on rental, and I thought initially Commissioner Lee had recommended that the rental be 15%, and we split it between 9 and 6 on low income and what moderate income, and that's kind of what Alhambra's doing at the moment. But so that was what I was eager to support.
Again, Alhambra is doing larger projects. If you drive down Main Street, or even go on some of the side streets, Second.
Oh, yeah,
Avenue,
if you go
they're
down.
doing larger housing projects. And again, when that happens in San Gabriel, there'll be density bonuses, and the inclusionary requirement kicks in. What we're talking about is prior to that.
I keep going back to this, though. San Gabriel does not have the land that Alhambra has.
Right.
So that
So
handcuffs us.
I really think going up from 0% on renters to 10% on renters shows to me that we're listening. Again, remember, a lot of renters think, we talked about this before in this discussion, that if we require 10% or 15%, they all think their rent's gonna go down. We're not talking about that. We have no control over current units that are on the rental market today. I think we all agree they're outrageously priced.
That would have to be a whole nother mechanism.
Right, we're talking about the future. We're talking
Right.
about future development. And at future development, where the consultant recommended 0, I'm comfortable recommending 10%.
Yeah, I just think that precisely because I think the fact that we aren't building as big a projects in San Gabriel, we're getting much less out of the 10% than if we were building big projects. So I take the opposite approach. I think that to compensate for that the percentage should be a little higher, so that we make the number of future affordable units meaningful, rather than just kind of a pittance that everybody's fighting for those scraps to rent those units.
If that's the motion, I'll vote against it.
If what's the motion?
If it's 15% for rental, I'll vote
For
against
rental,
it.
that's, yeah, I agree.
I'll go on the record, and I don't mind the council knowing that I would vote against that.
Okay, so I would,
Let me just make one other point about the 15%.
okay,
If we're going to say down the road, we're gonna revisit this with indication of what's happened over 5, 7 years, whatever it's gonna be, then I think if we show that there's really been, rental projects and we're getting some affordable units, and if we want to at that juncture, 5 or 7 years from now, revisit 15%, okay. I just think that the opening salvo at 10% makes a lot more sense.
I just think that, and I know what we have is the analysis, so that's what we have, in my opinion, we go by. And with the density bonus, it is.
We're not talking about density bonus, please.
But I am talking about density because it's relevant. I have to insist. Yes, it is, because they can utilize it. They can utilize it now if they want to. So the fact that we're saying we're not considering the density bonus, I don't think is right, because a developer can use the density bonus, and if they do use the density bonus, but well, they get to, no, but, and also, I want to make a point clear, so if they're required to put 15% affordable in, that density bonus goes up even more. They get more incentive. So it's not like, I don't agree with the premise that because we think perhaps this analysis doesn't capture everything that interest rates have right now. Well, the analysis doesn't, in my opinion, capture other things either, but we keep citing this analysis as our basis for what we're deciding on. And that analysis shows that density bonus more than compensates. And so I won't just forget about the density bonus, because I think any developer, whether they're going to be building 10% or 15%, they're going to use that density bonus because they can. So I don't understand why we're not considering that, and
For a very clear reason. Sean, you're talking about two different sides of the same coin. What we're talking about is what the minimum is before resident multifamily project kicks in with a density, with a inclusionary housing requirement. We're not talking about.
yes, I understand that.
We're not talking about the density bonus projects. Those are different entirely, and you're right. You can require more out of a density bonus project, absolutely, and we will. But again, the standard R3 site is much smaller. And so the question becomes, how do we take advantage of that and get affordable units for rental that we're not getting today? Because, you know, up till this moment, the number of affordable rental units is 0. We're trying to create one. We're trying to create more than one. We're trying to create many. But we start with one, or we start with just depending on the situation. We're talking about projects that don't qualify for density bonus. That's the thing. So focus on that.
Can staff clarify what does not qualify for a density bonus?
Retail projects, commercial projects,
Don't allow for a density bonus then?
correct? It
Under
applies-
state law, any housing development
Correct.
is eligible for density bonus.
So if it's a mixed-use project and there's housing in there, then they can qualify for density bonus?
They are eligible for density bonus.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to, I just want to make sure everyone, I mean, I think, I want to make sure Jerry and I are on the same page in terms of how the density bonus is utilized. I understand that we're making a cutoff at 5 and 10.
On the difference between what you're talking about conceptually is that we've actually seen these projects. The chair and I have been on a commission that has approved these projects with density bonuses. And those were done prior to an inclusionary requirement. I think clearly we're all supportive of, and the staff report references on table 11 on page 4. It says if an R3 project gets a density bonus, there is a larger affordable housing requirement. I think that table 11 explains it as well as can be explained. As clear as all, you know, with state density bonus, for sale units, 24% in the mixed-use zone. That's substantial. And in the rental units in the mixed-use zone, 14% with density bonus. Again, that's substantial. But at R3 rental, right now they're saying nothing. And I'm saying, and I think we're all saying, there's a percent of rental that should be included in terms of requiring a density bonus. I'm comfortable with that number being 10%. If it's a higher number on rentals,
So,
I've just clearly, I will clearly vote against it.
I
And
know-
I don't mind being on the record
okay.
as voting
I-
against the rental number at higher than 10.
I just want to clarify that the feasibility is based on, I'm looking at the numbers here, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at R3, different units, and so we have different numbers in terms of feasibility, but there's some that are based on density bonus being applied, so, and then density bonus not being applied. And so the density bonus is relevant because when it's applied, it's much more feasible to build. And if you're being required to build a minimum of 15 or 10%, you're going to use that density bonus. and the profits then, it shows here, go up. So that's why I'm not simply not considering the density bonus when we're considering on a mandatory percentage of what should be mandated. That's where I'm coming from.
You're not answering the more simple questions. On a project that doesn't involve density bonuses, just because it's out there doesn't mean somebody's gonna take it.
Why, though, if you can, if it improves the money? You're saying that, I'm just asking you why, you're saying that,
Because we see projects at 4 units and 6 units and 8 units that don't take density bonuses. They don't.
and we're excluding those below 10 and 5 in what you're proposing.
What
I
I'm
get that.
proposing is that at 10 units, we kick in a 10% rental density bonus requirement. Inclusionary requirements, pardon me, inclusionary requirement. And that at for sale, that number's 5 units. When a 10% inclusionary requirement kicks in. I'm just talking minimums. I'm not talking about density bonuses. Are the word that comes with density bonuses is maximum. I'm not talking about maximums. I'm talking about what the minimum is. What are we going to tell the council and the community? We believe those minimums should be, and those are my minimums.
I think they should be higher. I don't think that's enough, and I think that developers will use density bonuses when they're mandated to do a minimum. They will use those density bonuses to compensate and make a fair profit. So that's where I stand on it. But I'm happy to, if someone wants to make I don't, my preference is a minimum of 10, but ideally 15. And I think what's being offered right now is 15% on for sale and 10% on rental. And the cutoff for sale is 5 units, and the cutoff for rental is 10. I think that the rental should, I mean, if we're going to do for sale at 15, I don't know why we're not doing rental at 15. The majority of people who live in the city.
There's a word that, the answer is one word: feasibility.
And with the density bonus, we see that it's feasible. That's what I've saw in the analysis. So that's what I'm proposing. I know that you're not considering the density bonus, but I am. So, and I believe a developer will utilize that density bonus if they do 15. So that's what I'm recommending. Anything, and you know, if someone wants to say 13, 12, okay, I just think that if we're going to do 15 on for sale, why are we not doing 15 on rental? And the city council can disagree with us. I just think in good conscience, it's the majority of our residents are renters. So that's where I'm coming from.
That's not the majority of what's being built.
I know, but that's the reality of what's, and I have to think as well that if the majority of what's being built is less than 5 units, so what we're proposing here, I don't think is, if we don't do rental, the housing, first of all, the majority of people who are renters, they want to own a home, but they can't pull up their bootstraps if they have no boots. So a lot of mortgages, people are paying less on a mortgage than people are paying for rent because the people paying for rent, they don't have enough income or they have bad credit, so they're stuck in this poverty trap, and they're actually paying more in rent than what someone might be paying in a mortgage. But you can never get out of that poverty trap unless you're able to rent something that is affordable. You can't just say, I'm going to jump from rental to an affordable housing unit because it's still out of the reach of most people. I'm a renter. So I'm asking commission to consider more than 10% on rental. And I think, in my opinion, we owe it to our residents who are renters here. And I think majority of our rental, what the data shows, the majority of our rental stock is old, decades old. So at some point, we're going to start seeing some of that be rebuilt up. But we've already lost out on some major projects that are so majority of what has been built, but what about the rental units being built on San Gabriel, down by the nursery? All of those things. That's a lot of rental units that we could have had inclusionary housing in.
Those were not rental units.
Those were all for sale.
Units.
Which ones, where the nursery is?
Yes,
The mixed use?
yes.
And then what about the one across the street from the Good Fortune Market?
The stuff on St. Gabriel Boulevard is predominantly for sale. The proposals
Right.
were for sale.
Whether it's the old bowling alley site or whether it's the nursery site, those are all for sale units.
Okay. That doesn't really change my perspective that we need, the majority of people who live in the city are renters, and any new rental projects that are built need to include at least as much affordable units as we're mandating the housing units
You just
include.
answered your own question. They're not being built.
I understand they're not being built, but when they are being built, so we just say, you don't have to build anything, or you can build a lower
We're
amount?
not saying that at all. We're not saying that at all. I mean, we're batting around some real numbers here.
Yes, I'm looking at them.
Chair, if I may,
Jump on in.
I think I would like to see a higher number for rental, but we have to strike a balance, and then I think I can support what Jerry was saying for 10% and 15%.
For
10% for rental, even though I would like to see higher number, but I can support that.
okay,
And then 15% for sale.
right. Okay, that's kind of where I'm at also. So I'm going to propose a motion here.
Just briefly, I'm looking at, sorry, go ahead, or Tom.
Okay. So I'm going to move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution of recommending that the City Council adopt two ordinances of the City Council of the City of San Gabriel, amending Title 15, Chapter 153 Zoning Code for Inclusionary Housing and Density Bonus, and identify an inclusionary housing percentage, which would be for rental properties, 10% at a 10 unit with an, excuse me? Okay. Oh, right, floor, yes, thank you. With an in lieu fee kicking in at that point. And then for sale units being at 15% with a 5-unit floor with in lieu fees kicking in at that point. Sam, am I missing anything? We had a lot going here.
Yes, the only item would be the 10% distribution, if that is to be split amongst low and moderate or assigned to a specific percentage.
Okay. We haven't talked about that. Okay, we had 9 per, what,
For sale, you had 9 and 6. I think.
9 and 6, correct. And then for rental,
At 10%, the split.
5 and 5?
So what is the greatest need in the city? What are we most in need of? And I think that if I'm remembering correctly, low and extremely low income is what we need the most of based on our RENA numbers. So I would hope that we consider that.
Would you be okay, Sean, 7 and 3?
Well, 7 and 3 what?
7 for the low income and then 3 for moderate?
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Jerry?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Let's vote.
And just for the record, Chair, if I may, the motion also includes the amendments to the density bonus ordinance. There are 2 ordinances proposed in that one resolution.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
Correct.
Chair Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner McMorris.
Yes, but I would like the record to note that I think the rental should be higher percentage than 10.
Motion passed.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, very good. Okay, do we have any staff items?
Oh, on a lighter note, a couple of new businesses have opened, so this is my plug for the new businesses. With Love is a soft serve ice cream business that is next door to Golden Deli, and they have a Dole Whip, so that is a great thing to. Excuse me?
Next door to Golden Deli, okay.
Yeah, next to Golden Deli, yes. So it's a great family place. Also in the Mission View project that includes the Paris Baguette, poke business has opened there, as well as a breaded katsu sandwich and curry plate that I guess is very well known in the foodie world. And I believe this is their second location from their known location in downtown or Chinatown, I believe is their current location. So
that's
it's,
fabulous.
yeah, so it's great to see a lot of new businesses coming in as the city is coming back from the pandemic. So
Okay, good.
Also, there's one of the 20th. What about April 20th?
Oh, we have a commissioner dinner coming up,
yes.
and I hope everybody has RSVP'd. We will see you there. And any commissioner items?
Before we end, can I ask the staff to, if that's possible, to deliver the binders a little earlier, because I have a little time crunch going through the materials. Is maybe 1 week or a week and a half or so.
We used to have them on Wednesday, kind of end of business in the afternoon on Wednesday. And that worked out really well, because if you're out on the weekend, I travel a lot on weekends, I'd be able to, get after it on Thursday night. That would be my only, Wednesday or Thursday night. And right now, my only opportunity is a lot of times just Thursday night, or you come in and wing it, and that's never good. So I concur. I agree with that.
Yes, we can. We can try to aim for Wednesday evening.
I just want to say I thank commissioners and staff for all your hard work tonight, and I appreciate you all hearing me out. And even though we may not always agree on everything, I do respect all of your opinions, and I appreciate the civil back and forth we had. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's always our goal here. And honestly, if we can compromise, that's a good thing too.
We're not going to face nearly anything like this, as challenging as this, for a while.
I agree. This is hard work. Yeah. Yep. Okay, very good. We are adjourned until the next meeting. All right, thank you.